It's been a mystery unsolved for over 5 years. And if you lived in central Nebraska during that time, 5 years ago, chances are you have been wanting answers. We're talking about the drones.
Have been flying over Nebraska.
We contacted.
Remember all those drone sightings? I am pleased to welcome in Gabe Lenners. He is a Nebraska native who now lives in LA, and he has been investigating all these drone sightings and discovered enough information to create a podcast. Gabe, you had me at the cover art. Obscurum, Invasion of the Drones. I mean, this is so up my alley. I mean,
Really?
it's fascinating.
Thank you.
Where do we even start? I mean, how did you get interested in this topic?
This topic, Colleen, it really came to me.
Oh,
This story just kind of showed up. We were all experiencing these weird aircraft in the sky. I was home for the holidays, December 2019, 2020, visiting my family in Nebraska. They're in Imperial in the western part of the state, and
yeah.
I was sitting there and a couple nights before New Year's Eve, we get a knock at the door, and it's this police officer who I've known for years. I originally went to college to study weather, so I've done some TV weather, and I used to go spot storms with this police officer. And he said, "There's something kind of crazy happening. There's all of these drones hovering above people's farms in different areas of the county." And probably like you, when you heard this, you were like, "This is crazy." Um, so I drove out there that night and looked up into the sky and saw all these flashing lights. And from there, I just knew I had to ask questions and try to figure out what was going on. And that kind of led into this journey of this podcast, which is now almost 5 years in the making and beyond. It seems like, I mean, there's been some off and on times when I've worked on it, but
Yeah.
it's been a wild journey, if you will.
Oh my gosh. Do you think you set out to solve this mystery and did you achieve that? Or how much, I don't know how much you want to say because I know you
You
want
can
everyone
say,
want us
no,
all
say
to listen to the podcast.
you can listen to the podcast. I mean, I'll jump in. Like my feeling with doing this from the very beginning was anytime you see anything in the sky, it's really hard to justify specifically what you're seeing. The night messes with, you know, your vision and distance and a whole bunch of different things. And I knew the best place to kind of jump in would probably be to figure out the why. And so there were a lot of people that had different theories. And I kind of started there by just getting the perspective of people who live in Nebraska, Southwest Nebraska, Northwest Kansas, Eastern Colorado, into what they were experiencing. Because we know these people. They're our neighbors. We've been there forever. And a lot of people had similar stories that don't know each other. And I knew I kind of started there. And that kind of led me into check into, some of these theories one by one. And that's what we really delve into in the podcast.
Like I had thought it was maybe resolved and it was just Starlink or something.
Yeah. A lot of people
Is that
thought
a red
that.
herring?
A lot of people thought that. There were a lot of different things kind of swirling around during that time. Starlink is something that's seen a lot of different places with, the line of lights flashing,
Yes.
right? Yeah. And this more started uh this started with like people seeing in Western Nebraska like 20, 30, even 40 of these things like flying around, not in a line like Starlink. And then they started to progress east. But the Starlink theory was tossed around for a while. But yeah, there were definitely a lot of other things going on. I like to call it a circus in the sky. I feel like there's a lot of things happening in the sky at the same time.
Offhand, can you think of some of the more bizarre theories that you've heard? I mean, aliens, people messaged us all the
Yeah.
time saying that.
Yeah, I am a journalist just like you, and I always go where the story leads and ask the questions surrounding the story. And getting the truth is always my objective. But as you might have guessed, I met some interesting people who had some interesting experiences and theories. One of the things that kind of stood out to me at the very beginning in the first couple episodes of this podcast. I met this lady who lived in Northeast Colorado, and she kind of recounted this story to me of how her daughter was driving home one night at the height of these sightings, and three of these drones, aircraft, whatever you want to call them, were hovering above her vehicle. And it actually started interfering with her cell phone reception as they were flying above her. Um, and that was one of the most interesting, yeah, bizarre stories I kind of heard at the beginning. And it gets weirder as you get into the podcast. But that one early on, kind of was a tip off to be like, you need to keep trying to figure out what's going on.
There's something about the drones. When someone gets in your personal space and it just puts you on edge, they seemed so invasive that they were just there and we didn't know who was behind them or what they were doing, or were they gathering intelligence? Were they the
Yeah.
spies? I mean, all of those things.
Yeah, it's always the why and what were they there and what
Yeah.
were they doing? I mean, and why would they choose Nebraska?
Yes.
Um, why would they choose Eastern Colorado? And,
Mhm.
you know, you would just see, yeah, night after night, just so many of these hovering in the sky. And the thing, is we've seen in the news recently is like, the security aspect of our skies. It's very important to know what's flying up there at any given time.
Well,
So,
I can remember in the newsroom, we of course were getting reports and everybody was talking about it on social media. And we contacted Senator Deb Fisher's office to see if she could check with the FAA. Somebody should have a record.
yeah, and there were so many different sightings in different areas at the same time. It was hard to justify what people were seeing. And then of course when you get more reports, more people may be misinterpreting what they're seeing in the sky because they're going out to look for things. But yeah, this just started in Northeast Colorado, and I remember that night, like kind of at the beginning when I started asking questions, I was like, well, where did these begin? And I saw this article in the Denver Post that like people in this one county in Phillips County in Colorado started to see these first. And so I was like, I'm going to go find people there and see what they saw. And that's where, from my reporting that this thing kind of really started to kick off, and it spread into Southwest Nebraska and then Northwest Kansas and different things. And I think one of the biggest things I learned throughout the whole process, though, is there's kind of a lack of communication sharing between, maybe different agencies and different people with sharing what was reported at the same time. And so there was just a lot of kind of mass confusion happening as these things were beginning to be seen.
Well, quickly, I want to get to a couple of points here. You grew up in Imperial and now you're in LA. Give us quickly, let us know how you're doing.
Yeah.
You've had a lot of success. You've done stuff
Oh,
with
thank you.
CMT, Disney, yeah, Disney Radio. Exciting.
Yeah. So I went to college at the University of Oklahoma down in Sooner Country, and I had this passion for studying weather. I know a lot of people
Just
say
kidding.
that. And no, it's not the first time I've heard it, but it was such a great experience, and I was very interested in doing TV weather. And I got into that a bit, but one summer I got an internship with ABC News in Los Angeles, and it had happened to be the summer that Michael Jackson passed away. And so I was out in LA when that kind of whole event transpired, and I got pulled into the music world, in the entertainment world. And I really loved that aspect of it just as much as I did weather. And I kind of had an opportunity to do more of that. So after college, I moved out to LA and then became the host of Radio Disney Country for the Walt Disney Company and Radio Disney, and hosted a show on there. And then I've done a lot of reporting work for Good Morning America Digital and CMT and ABC News. And so, yeah, this story really was fun with these drones to kind of go back home and like experience where I grew up and talk to these people who are seeing this weird thing in the sky,
Yeah.
on those roads that you've seen your whole life. So, but there are a lot of questions too. And part of the reason I put this out is I want people to still tell me what they're seeing. And if they are seeing drones, I still talk to people from time to time in Western Nebraska and Northeast Colorado that see weird lights in the sky from time to time that resemble these drones. And so there are people who've messaged me since this has come out who have seen different things. And so, yeah, if you're seeing things, let me know. I think this is like a broad overall conversation that hopefully we can figure out the specific details of this together. And the podcast is just the precursor to that journey.
Give us all the details where we can see the podcast or listen to it when it comes out, and all of the fun stuff.
So the first 2 episodes are going to be out. If you're watching this after tomorrow is February 11th, but they're going to be available tomorrow, the first 2 episodes.
Oh my
then
gosh.
They'll roll out. Yes. Oh. Then they're going to roll out weekly. So we're just getting started on Tuesdays. There's 9 episodes in the first season. You can listen anywhere you get your podcasts, on Spotify, Apple, Google, YouTube. So just, rate it. Please follow and then leave us a comment, and specifically comment and tell us if you're still seeing lights in the sky or if you have a memory from that time. I'd love to hear more about it.
And we just look up Obscurum.
So you can search. You can search Obscurum, Invasion of the Drones. So the big broad name of the series is Obscurum, and the first season is Invasion of the Drones. I think that's it. Just, I just would love people to come along on this ride with me and tell me what you think and what you remember, and listen to it. And
do you think people who like true crime podcasts or those kind of keep you guessing kind of podcasts, would this be in their lane?
This would, If you like true crime, if you like mystery, if you like Stranger Things, I call this like the real life Stranger Things story. It's like you're living in the real Upside Down, because there are different things that, that happen that just, don't quite connect with these mysterious aircraft. And that's what I kind of find interesting about it, is it's not dark like true crime, but it's more interesting and kind of a psychological thriller / mystery. But we all experienced it, and it's real, and it happened.
Have been flying over mysterious aircraft.
We contacted
Who's controlling that?
Clearly not airplanes.
Above our heads.
What started out as a hometown holiday visit changed everything I thought I knew. I can't worry about what might happen or the consequences of revealing the truth.
There's one right over the top of me right now.
Something is haunting me. A key piece of a strange puzzle that's missing.
One was directly above her and one was to her left. And they followed her roughly about 9 or 10 miles. It just feels like you're being watched by these machines.
It all began when they arrived. Groups of unidentified objects hovering over the prairies in Colorado and Nebraska.
She was a lot more concerned, in case they're trying to find people and find kids to nab.
Since then, I've been asking questions.
You're in the driveway outside your house. What was it doing?
It actually rotated, looking as if it was peering in each window of our home.
I'm Gabe Lenners, and this is Obscurum, Invasion of the Drones.
You can actually hear it. There's 2 objects. It's really hard to keep on, and it's coming right over me. What in the fuck?